Good morning and welcome to KCPS Homeroom, presented by the Kansas City Public Schools. I'm Justin Robinson, Director of Communications for the Kansas City Public Schools. Today on Homeroom, it's our Back to School special. We will talk with local education experts about the upcoming school year and what families can expect. We will also take a look at what KCPS and other school districts around the area are doing when school starts. We will explore the difference between distance and virtual learning and speak to some principals and students about their prep for the upcoming school year. Again, that's all coming up later on KCPS Homeroom. But first, let's talk a little bit about what you'll see on KCPS Homeroom throughout the school year. Well, KCPS Homeroom is a new one-hour television show that we've created to provide an additional learning opportunity for all families in the Kansas City viewing area. Homeroom offers daily academic instruction in the core content areas for all age groups. That includes math, English, science, social studies, fine arts, and physical education. The goal of this TV show is to provide an additional academic outlet for families as we all try to navigate education during this pandemic. In order to reach more students, KCPS will air this academic content right here on KMCI 38 The Spot every weekday at 8 a.m. The content programming schedule is as follows. On Mondays, we'll do math. On Tuesdays, English language arts. Wednesdays, science. Thursdays, social studies and world languages. And Fridays, fine arts and life skills. Each episode will have 4 segments that will include teacher-presented curriculum for the following grade levels: K through 2, 3 through 6, 7 through 8, and 9 through 12. So you ask, why KCPS Homeroom? Well, this venture is for teaching and learning. We here at KCPS understand the struggles of at-home learning. We aren't only educators, we're also parents. And we understand the difficulties and the balance it takes to accomplish effective academics at home while you're still trying to perform your own daily duties. It's hard. It's real hard. So anything we can do to help not just the students in Kansas City Public Schools, but students throughout the entire Kansas City area, we thought it was important for us to explore this venture. We look forward to providing this additional resource to families. We hope you all find it valuable and continue to tune in throughout the school year. Well, what exactly will the 2020-2021 school year look like? Of course, it depends on where you live and where your student goes to school. But what we do know that throughout the metro area, educators have been working tirelessly to both keep students safe and provide them the best possible education during this pandemic. Coming up, we will talk about some of those decisions and how area academic leaders came to their conclusions.
Kindergarten is great at Kansas City Public Schools.
I know they have really good teachers. I know this is a great school.
They teach them stuff that I thought my kids would never be able to know at the age of 5.
Since deciding to send our kiddos to a neighborhood school, we've become even more of a part of our community.
Now is the time to enroll your future kindergartner for the new school year. Visit enrollkc.org today.
Welcome back. KCPS is starting the school year without in-person classes. Some other metro school districts are having in-person class. Our first guest of the day is the Chief of Communications and Marketing for the Kansas City Public Schools, Ms. Kelly Wachel. Now, Kelly, you are a seasoned veteran in communications and have worked with several different school districts in the area. Obviously, this year is a unique situation, but please take us behind the curtain a little bit into what goes into these tough decisions that all school districts had to make in respect to whether to have kids in school or have them learning from home.
That's the big question, right? You know, we here at KCPS specifically, and I know districts around the region and around the country, have been planning for months, since March, since even February, thinking about when this pandemic was approaching. So one of the things that's been really important to us is to meet consistently and really be in touch with other school districts locally, regionally, and nationally about their plans, about their thoughts, how they're approaching different items within school districts. And so we've been meeting 3 times a week as cabinet executive team, with parents, with students even, to get a feel for the pulse and get a feel for the decision making that we have to be embarking upon here as we go into the school year. That being said, it's constant communication, it's constant touch base, It's constant getting the pulse of how people are feeling. We've been really intentional about talking to parents, talking to students, talking to partners. Our principals have been integral in this conversation about execution of how we do school, not only at KCPS, but around the region. And so, behind the scenes, we're always thinking about students and families, right? Safety. How is this impacting our kids? How is it impacting our families? And then, of course, how it's impacting our staff and our leaders here in the district and around the region when we know that decisions in KCPS can have a ripple effect on other districts around us. So that constant communication, the constant forefront question of, is it safe? Is it the right thing to do? It might be hard, but it's the right thing to do. So we've been wanting so badly to be back in person and start our year in person, and that was the original intent. It was our original communications that we had ready to launch in mid-July, but seeing all those numbers go up with the positive COVID cases in Kansas City proper, even around the region, we knew we had to make it a little bit of adjustment to keep our kids and our staff and our families safe. So I want everyone to know that while it's been a difficult decision, we feel really good about the decision, keeping safety and health at the forefront. And as I see other districts making those decisions as well, we are really in the same position of keeping people safe, keeping kids, family, and the community safe. And I feel good about how most of our school districts are approaching this decision.
It takes a lot to run a school district and meet the needs of our students here in Kansas City, but also in other school districts. We all have foundations. We all have partners in education. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the people in the community are doing to help fill some gaps that we might have in the school district, maybe financially or other ways with partners?
Great question, because we do have awesome, engaged, and very generous partners. So we are right now working with several partners on school supplies to get all of our kids' needed supplies ready to go for an online start. We have Summerfest coming up where we deliver those supplies to our families and to our students. We have health partners right now who will be at our Summerfest event that can do screenings, diagnoses, can do vaccines. And so those health partners are really integral right now in how we get kids back to school in a healthy way. They're working with our athletic teams as well to make sure that our trainers are engaged and updated on the most recent information about how safety is working for our athletes and for our students. So not only partners in school supplies, but funding for just matching grants and donations to help with technology. We're providing hotspots and devices for all of our students, pre-K through seniors. And so we have some support from those partners to help with the technology. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that we're always doing in KCPS and as school districts and as educators around the country are always wanting to do, how do we have those partners that we express much gratitude to and show how experiences for our kids are really enhanced when we have good partners working with us.
I know you've been on the phone and in Zoom calls and in meetings constantly for over the past 5 months, not only just within Kansas City Public Schools, but again, some of the other surrounding school districts. What are some of the conversations you're having with other communications professionals and how they're going about their decision-making process and kind of how they're communicating out to their families and whether they're hearing back from their families as well?
We talk as communications professionals on a regular basis. We actually have a group me chat set up where we can go back and forth with feedback and questions and making sure that we're all in alignment with some of the decisions that are being made. I'm really proud of the communications professionals working with our schools right now, with our superintendents, with our leadership teams, with our families, with our kids right now. One of the biggest things is the constant stream of communications that's going out and all of the adjustments and pivots that we're having to make. School communications pros are doing a fantastic job, and I think the majority of our communities see that. But sometimes it is hard to see some of the negative feedback, like we haven't been working on this for the last 5 months, because we certainly have been. But I would say that the stream of communication, the adjustments, the pivots, the going with the flow, the looking to collaborate and looking to the guidance from the health departments, from local officials, I'm really proud of how we've been able to do that together as teams, as school districts, and then make sure that we're taking care of our families and communities and our kids to communicate that in timely, accurate, and efficient ways. through video work sometimes that we do, so social media work, through different platforms that we use in school districts. We have so many ways to connect with our families and with our students and with our staff. I just hope that people are noticing all of the creative ways we're trying to communicate sometimes a changing and difficult message. We know as communicators and as parents as well, we don't like hearing some of the decisions that we're making, but we're doing it to be safe. We're doing it to be able to say we did the right thing in the long run, and we're doing it because we love all of our children.
It's definitely unprecedented times across the board, not just in KCPS, but all the other school districts in the viewing area. We thank you all for the work you're doing behind the scenes to get to some of these decisions. We know they are not easy decisions, but making decisions in the best interest of our students' safety and then also academically. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us. You have a great day.
Thanks. Take care.
Later on the show, we will hear from principals and students as they prepare for the upcoming school year. But next, do you wonder what the difference between virtual learning and distance learning is? Well, we have a panel of educators who will go in depth about the learning options that families have.
The desire to create lives within each of us. From Grammy-winning producers and musicians, to NBA stars, to Navy admirals and Medal of Honor recipients, to internationally renowned artists and beloved local muralists, Paseo graduates have been creating their own success, their own history, their own legacy since 1926. Now it's your time. Create your future at Paseo Academy of Fine and Performing Arts. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Paseo.
When COVID-19 hit in the spring, education was immediately changed, probably forever. What we all knew at school, students going to a building with teachers and other kids, was no more. All students all across the country were at home learning through digital methods. Some school districts called it continuous learning, some called it virtual learning, others called it distance learning. No matter what term was used, students were at home and many parents were asked to assist in the learning process. The quick change wasn't perfect, but educators made it through and learned a lot of lessons themselves. Now, they will use those lessons learned as we enter into the next school year. Joining me today to discuss how educators are moving forward, Kansas City Public Schools Deputy Superintendent Dr. Marla Shepard, Kansas City Public Schools Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Development, Dr. Michelle Fitzgerald, and the Director of Educational Innovation, Dr. Christy Harrison. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. I know it's been a busy summer for everyone and about to be a busier spring. So as we jump into this, first of all, talk about a little bit of the lessons, Dr. Shepard, that you all learned as a system when it came to teaching and learning from last spring when COVID-19 hit. What did you guys have to adjust to, and what did you learn from it?
I think we had to first adjust to the virtual environment and giving children flexibility and giving teachers flexibility as well. What we found in so many cases is that our teachers were at home. Not only were they teaching our children in Kansas City Public Schools, but they were teaching their own children at home. And so for us, it was important for us to think about the roles that they had to play, but also to think about the roles that our kids had to play. Many of our children were home with younger siblings alone, and so they could not get to their education and the assignments until later in the evening. So for us, the big lesson here was around the flexibility that we needed to display. And then also we learned about our devices. There were so many children that lacked access to the internet. And I think the big thing perhaps for Kansas City and also the nation is that perhaps internet should be a utility, a public utility, and not just something that some kids have or that a privilege that children may have. And so we had to hurry up and get our devices distributed, and we had to rush and make sure that every kid had access to internet through Wi-Fi, our Wi-Fi kits. And so that showed us that there was still a huge divide in what kids had and what kids had access to. And so for us in moving forward, we know that we got to make sure that we give one device per kid, not per household, and that we make sure that we have accounted for every kid in our district having access to the internet. And then our teachers already have a schedule and our principals have a schedule, and they know that there'll be flexibility in the learning process. And especially when we talk about our high school kids, there'll be flexibility in that process. And we've written our our guidelines such that schools could have the flexibility to do what's needed in order to reach all kids.
All right, now as we go into this next school year, like I just mentioned, some people call it continuous learning throughout the metro area. Some people call it distance learning. Some people call it at-home school. Some people call it virtual learning. So as we go into this next school year, what we do know now is a few school districts like Kansas City Public Schools, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, a couple of other surrounding school districts are actually going to start off with no students in person in the school buildings. Other school districts are going to have students come back, but they also are communicating with the public that if a situation gets a little worse, then they'll go to a blended model, and then they could also go to a distance learning model. For parents, all those different terminologies can get confusing. So let's have a conversation right here to try to clear up some of this. Let's first start off with distance learning, which I do think across the education community, people are settling in on the term distance learning and what it means. So can you talk a little bit about what is distance learning?
Yes. Well, distance learning is just an extension of the actual classroom. So students are assigned to teachers in a school building. And the distance learning is just an extension of that classroom while the kids are at home. Now, when we transition into hybrid or when we transition into 100% in person, those students will transition as well. They are at home now because that is the safest model that we have available. However, they are still connected to teachers who are in our schools, and they are still connected to the school that they're assigned to.
So that is a breakdown of distance learning. Again, I think from what throughout the community, that is the traditional, that's what people are calling distance learning. You are still assigned to your particular school, you're assigned to with your particular teacher. Depending on what the safety standards are, you'll either be in the building or you'll be at home with the teacher. Now, virtual, Dr. Harrison, can you talk a little bit about virtual? Because I know that's your area.
Yeah, virtual is a little bit different. Virtual students are still assigned to teachers. They're still certified in their content area. In some school systems, those virtual teachers may work in a whole different area. They may not even be a part of the school district. In our district, we're lucky that we are able to hire our virtual teachers from right within our district. So we have Kansas City Public School teachers who happen to be some of the best teachers we know that are working in our virtual program and will be supporting us through that. But they work with students, and the curriculum is still tied to Missouri Learning Standards. It's still tied to our Kansas City Public Schools curriculum, but it is presented to students in a semester format. So students have access to their lessons for the entire semester, and they can work through the curriculum at a pace that is really very flexible. So sometimes students may choose to move into a virtual program because they hold a job or their family has some mitigating circumstances, or they choose to just get ahead in their schooling. And so they can really work in a very, very flexible format. They may choose to work on their lessons in the evening because they have other obligations during the daytime. So it's really available for them at any time.
And I know one of the keys is the difference between virtual and a distance platform, again, across pretty much the community as we talk to other school districts, is that the virtual program, you will be at home throughout the semester, no matter what the safety concerns are at the time throughout what we get from the health departments. Virtual, you will be at home. If you do a distance learning process, then you'll go back to classroom when it's time to go back to the classroom, or vice versa. So that is very important for parents to understand and know in the process. Now, I think what also parents want to know is the difference that will happen with the teaching and learning. So Dr. Fitzgerald, can you talk a little bit about what you're working with as far as the curriculum? How much will parents have to be involved? How much can they step back from what they experienced in the spring?
That's a great question. We're working hard here on the curriculum, making sure that we have all of our standards identified. We still are holding our students to the grade level standards, the Missouri Learning Standards. We had to also think about the standards from last year, and make sure, because the standards build upon themselves. So we're really looking to make sure that we don't have any gaps in kids' learning. And what parents can expect, what we're working on right now is, while we still want some flexibility because that will be best for some of our students, we also want to have a schedule, because we do feel that in a distance learning environment, still keeping to a schedule for kids that can is a good thing. Like you're still at school, it's still school hours, you're just doing it from your home. And so what parents can expect is a schedule where every day from 8:30 to 8:50 would be a morning meeting. And kids would get on to Google Meet or Microsoft Teams with their teacher, their classroom teacher, and there would be a morning meeting, just like they would have a morning meeting if they were in their brick and mortar school. They would do the morning meeting through the distance learning. Then we would still have literacy, whole group lesson, math and science, social studies. Kids will still be having encore classes. Then there will be time for where we would normally have what's called small group. The teachers would have time assigned to be pulling kids into smaller groups who need additional help. At that time, other kids would be going off of the live stream and working on some tasks and assignments on their own. And that's where a parent could come in handy for sure, with the child, making sure that they know how to access the tasks, how to go on to Seesaw or Google Classroom to access the task. And the parent can be available to answer any question, just like they would now. When a child is home doing homework, how much does the parent help the student with their homework? Having that availability. But additionally, we're working with our schools to think through some time to have teachers available that if a child is working on their assignments from home, that they can get back on to the Google Meet or onto the Microsoft Teams and ask teacher clarifying questions. So we really want to have our teachers available to our kids when they're doing some of that learning on their own at home. So for parents, it's absolutely important that they learn the management system, the Seesaw or Google Classroom, so they can help their child access all of the tasks and the assignments that way, and make sure that their child is returning the assignments back to the teacher so the teacher can provide feedback and know how the child is progressing towards meeting those standards.
All right, a couple more questions. One, I know with this digital platform that students will be learning, the concern that we've heard from parents is about screen time. We've kind of heard the limiting of screen time in the past, but now we're going to ask students to be on screens to learn. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between when you try to limit the screen time between, the video games and things like that versus what you're actually going to be doing on the screen when it comes to academics?
Yeah, I think it's how you define screen time. You're absolutely right. When you say screen time for games is not what we want our children to be doing. And when we ask to limit screen time, that's where we want them, or just screen time limiting of watching movies and TV. So we did look at screen time and what recommendations are for kids. So when we say kids will be on, there will be a 30-minute whole group lesson, it doesn't mean the child sitting staring at a screen for 30 minutes, especially when we're talking kindergarten, first grade, second grade. That's the time frame where a teacher could do a phonics lesson or a literacy mini lesson, but they'll be coming on like what we're doing right now, having a conversation via the screen. It's not screen time in the fact that kids will just be watching movies or just be playing games. It will be an interactive screen time. They'll be typing into the chat, answering questions. They might be going on to a Padlet, where they answer some questions. So it will be very strategic time, but it's not any extended amount of time that's too long for kids to be on screen.
Well, thank you, Dr. Shepard. Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. I know you all are very busy as teachers return to some of the buildings this week, and you're doing professional development with them, making sure that they're prepared to be those teachers through digital platforms throughout this school year. So again, thank you for joining us. Hope you all have a great day. Still to come, students share their feelings about distance learning and virtual learning and talk about which option is best for their family. But next, 4 local principals discuss what it's like getting ready for a school year that will start like no other.
I love Southeast because of the culture, the band program, and restorative justice.
I love Southeast because of the academics, sports, and students.
I love Southeast because of the people, the energy, and the advanced classes. It's not alike. I love Southeast because the students here at Southeast are full of potential and they believe in achieving anything. We are Southeast. Southeast. We stand shoulder to shoulder.
Join the Southeast family. Enroll today.
Welcome back to KCPS Homeroom. Well, as kids get ready to go back to school, whether it's in person or distance learning, who's responsible for it are principals. We are accustomed to see principals walking the hallways, keeping order, making sure that the teachers are academically where they're supposed to be, making sure your students learn. It's going to be a little bit different this year, especially here in the Kansas City Public Schools, where this year we're starting off with distance learning. Now, most of the time when you hear that word, as we talked a little bit earlier in the show, people get a little bit nervous because of what they experienced this past spring. But I'm joined here with several principals who are going to talk about what distance learning will look like coming up this school year. So we have Brett Schriever from Northeast Middle School, Harrison Neal, who is from Banneker Elementary School, Kalinda Bass Barlow from Holiday Montessori, and Ben Richardson from East High School. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start off with elementary school. Ms. Bass Barlow and Mr. Neal. When you talk about distance learning, I think it's kind of hardest when you talk about the younger students, especially when you are K through 2, where they're still learning to read. And it's kind of hard to do some of these things on your own when you're still learning to read. So as you go into this school year, I'm going to start off with you, Mr. Neal. What do you kind of expect from the students, or what are things are in place that can help the parents as they're trying to help their students learn at home?
We first off, we want to ensure that all kids are learning. That's our ultimate goal, the ultimate goal of education. We have several layers of support in place for parents, even our parent university and most of our parent resource meetings that we will be having this school year as well. Ultimately, acclimating all parents to the materials as well as the online platforms that their students and children will be participating in. We'll be using various platforms, including Google Classroom, Google Meets, Google Hangout, as well as we'll also be utilizing Seesaw in kindergarten through second grade. We're extremely excited for our parent university and our parent meetings to ultimately adjust our parents to the resources and the needed information to help our children be successful both at home while they're away participating in distance learning.
And Ms. Bass Barlow, your school is a little bit different. You're a Montessori school, which obviously the curriculum is a little bit different there. How do you incorporate that into a distance learning platform?
Certainly. I echo a lot of what my colleague Harrison Neal just said there, but for us, it's really, finding those things that are common. And so for Montessori, there are some common tenets and principles in the Montessori philosophy. And so, we have looked to find those common things that we all can connect on. So, for example, a prepared environment is something that's very essential in a Montessori environment. So like Mr. Neal said there, partnering with our families and having those caregiver partnerships where we're helping to link the home and school. And so that is some of what we're doing. And a lot of what we do in Montessori anyways is already small group instruction and individual learning for students. So we're taking the virtual platform and using that piece as, a common piece so that we're still meeting with our children in small groups and differentiated learning. The Montessori community as a whole has really worked well around the country to replicate some of our resources so that we can bring them temporarily to a digital platform as well as reproducible platforms. But I think one of the key elements for all of us, whether we're Montessori or traditional, it's really, partnering with families. And, we've always said as educators that the home and school should partner together. And so I think we're in a season right now where we really need to maximize that partnership. So already at Holiday, we have facilitated town hall meetings. We've had parent as caregivers meetings, those new orientation meetings for our families. So really getting out there, connecting with our families and, becoming partners in this work.
And when you talk about the 3rd through 6th grade, when they can read a little bit more, do they have more independent work that you have planned for them? Or is it still something that parents will probably need to be very involved with?
Yes. So again, trying to replicate the classroom. So typically in a classroom, a teacher would meet with a child for a small group, and then they would go back and work independently, and the teacher is there to assist them. We will do that same model over the computer. The teachers will pull the children for their small group instruction, and then those children will have individualized instruction that they're able to use on those digital platforms, as well as self-paced reading at home, and being able to use tools to help us know what they're thinking so that we can assess where they are with their learning as we go along.
And Mr. Neal?
Yes, and in addition, we will use our reading and math interventionists at the kindergarten through second grade level, as well as the third through sixth grade level, to also increase more opportunities for students to participate in small group instruction. Ultimately, we want to make sure that every adult that is in the building that is able to touch children in regards to providing academic services is involved in their learning. And so as Dr. Bass Barlow just previously stated, it really is going to take a collective and a collaborative effort across not just parents, but across the school system to ensure that all kids are provided the necessary resources and teaching and learning to ultimately be successful this school year.
All right, let's move to secondary, Mr. Shriver and Mr. Richardson. So at Northeast Middle School and also East High School. Again, when we saw a distance learning model back in the spring, middle school, they're more used to being on devices and kind of doing things a little bit different. And so same with high school. So as we go into this school year, what things did you guys learn? What things are you going to have in place to help them with learning this school year?
Well, I think for us, one of the big hurdles really was identifying that, our teachers are incredible at what they do, and just helping them get the tools that they need to help transition that to a distance learning platform. That's what we've spent a lot of time doing is what is the best pedagogy for learning in a virtual setting or in a distance setting so that we can provide those tools. So we've really taken a deep look at what worked, what didn't work, and identifying and doing a lot of research. I've been reading nonstop on virtual learning and improving the distance learning settings so that we can meet the needs of all of our students. Northeast, Middle, as well as East, we have a very large population of students that are learning English as a second language. So really trying to find hands-on, exciting ways, engaging ways for our students to learn. And I think the big piece is we just have to reprogram ourselves to understand that we're now in a world that is technologically advanced. And this is going to cause us to change the face of education for the better. Our scholars are going to be more ready for the world than they've ever been. And if we look at this as an opportunity to change the future and to really move up, it's incredible. So we're really making sure that we're meeting the individual needs of our scholars and making sure that our instruction, while it may be different in the way that it's delivered, we're still here. We're still focused on a solid curriculum, on best instructional practices, and really meeting the individual needs of each of our students. And our teachers and our parents and our students have had a voice in making those decisions and really helping us design what that looks like for the future of Northeast Middle School and the district as a whole.
And Mr. Richardson at East High School?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything Brett said there really hits home for me as well. Over at East, as with all of the high schools, we've been really fortunate that we've had one-to-one in our schools now for quite a few years. And so that's afforded our teachers the opportunity to really learn a lot of the different platforms. And ever since quarantine started back in March, our teachers have been pouring themselves and their passion for education into understanding and learning even more platforms with the district's help. We have had nonstop professional development for going on 5-6 months now, and our teachers are taking it in stride. We do have a large English language learner population, and our teachers are able to implement best practices using a lot of really strong digital platforms. And so we are excited that our students, they already understand how to use many platforms digitally because they've been doing that, again, for multiple years now. And we feel confident in our ability to communicate with them using Google Classroom, using many different platforms that we have access to. And we are in some ways excited for the opportunities that this digital platform is going to give us, because East High School is a project-based learning school. We are a career pathway school, and we are going to be able to continue with those services while we're in a distance learning setting. It won't be the same, and it won't be as convenient for teachers to try to work one-on-one, but we do have the opportunities to do so, and the teachers are up to the challenge.
And this next question I would like for you all to comment on and share a little bit. As professionals in the field, you guys have been in for a long time. We know you have friends in other school systems. This is broadcast throughout the entire area. And so what are you hearing? Let's talk a little bit about what are some of your other colleagues in other school districts, and especially a lot of them are actually going back to in-person. So what are some of those conversations like with some of the other principals in some of these other school districts?
I think, as leaders, we're concerned, but we also understand the roles that we've taken on. And so, we have begun to refer to ourselves as essential workers or those first responders, meaning that, we're committed to our work, but, at the same time, we have reservations as educators, knowing that, we have families at home and, we will have to come back. But ultimately, we're relying on, what we know, and that is that, we're here to serve children, and we're willing to do what we need to do to make sure that we maximize those opportunities for our students as well as our educators, and just wanting to make sure that we thoroughly plan as school leaders to make sure that we put the proper measures in place to assure the safety of, ourselves as educators.
And I'll go. And I think one of the other pieces, I was in a conversation today with a colleague in another district, and I think one of the things that kind of knocked me back a little bit was he said, I'm really jealous of the way that KCPS is handling this, the consistency. They've made a decision and they're sticking with it. And I think that's a big piece. Is so many other districts, well, they're waxing and waning on back and forth about, well, maybe we could have kids in more quickly, or maybe we could do this. Whereas, we as a district have made a decision. This is what we're going to do because per CDC, per the mayor's office, per, Jackson County Health Department, we're making a solid decision and we're sticking with it. And I think that that's a big piece, that a lot of people, and even my friends who are teaching in other states, when we talk about it, that's one of the big pieces. We've made a decision. I think it's a fantastic decision. We're sticking with it, and we're moving forward. We have a clear plan for success, and it's allowing us, or at least me as a school leader, to focus on that path and not worry about, okay, is this going to change tomorrow? Is this going to change next week? We know that this is what the criteria are going to be for us to return to a normal classroom. And so many other districts are making, again, nothing against the way that they're handling anything, but I'm very appreciative, and my colleagues that I've talked to, they want that solid decision and that sticking to that decision.
Mr. Neal?
And I'll say overall, in talking to my colleagues across multiple districts, across charters as well as across states, just ultimately we want to make sure that safety is maintained, and ultimately that we just keep the end goal in mind of that all students must learn. Whether they're entering our hallways physically within our schools or they're virtually within our classrooms, the ultimate goal is to ensure that all kids are learning. And so we have to be creative. We have to be innovative. We have to make sure that we're following our guidelines. And then ultimately we're leaning on a lot of our virtual training and professional development that across districts across the country throughout fourth quarter, as well as last summer participate in, as well as our teachers participate in as well this week with Teacher Institute, and utilizing those strategies and those professional developments to ultimately make sure that we can ensure that all kids are learning in this virtual platform. We all know one day we will return to the school buildings. However, until that time comes, we want to make sure that ultimately we're prepared to deliver content, curriculum, and instruction to our students to ensure that all kids are learning, and that we want to slow down and prevent, I would say, the learning curve and the learning gap of making that widen. And so I'll say ultimately, in talking to colleagues just across the country, we're all leaning on each other. I will echo what Dr. Bass Barlow has stated. We're on the front lines. As I tell our teachers all the time, I wouldn't ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself. And we're even having discussions at our buildings of how we're using even our administrators to jump in these virtual platforms to make sure we're able to deliver content. I think the ultimate goal across the country is to make sure that we do not have any learning loss for students, and ultimately making sure that students at the end of the day, at the end of this school year, are receiving the grade level content that they need to be successful.
And Mr. Richardson, we will give you the last word.
All right. I think the overwhelming feeling that I've gotten from all the different folks that I speak with in education in the city, also in other parts of the country, is there is an energy about educators right now that I don't think I've seen replicated in previous years. We're always excited for a new school year and up for the challenge, but there's an energy and a passion coming into this school year because of the urgency. I mean, Harrison just spoke to it. It is incredibly important that we prevent any more learning loss from happening. We know the research about the summer slide, and we know that there's going to be more research coming out in future years about the COVID slide. And we do not want that to be any larger of an impact than it has to be. And so all the different folks that I've spoken with, there is an urgency to what we are coming into this school year that I've not seen before. And then I'll also add that in some people, there's also been a frustration in other areas because, as Brett pointed to, there has been a lack of clarity from leadership in other districts that has caused frustration. They're urgent, but they don't have a place to put their energy into the planning. And so, and then in others, I will say as well that, like KCPS made a decision and allowed us to plan, others have felt like, they're able to do good planning, like what's been going on here in KCPS. But yeah, I would say that there's an urgency that I've never seen before. And I think some of the most innovative and creative solutions to problems are going to come out of this school year that we've ever seen.
Well, we thank you all for what you do. You definitely are essential workers. You definitely are on the front line. And we want to give you guys a chance as administrators to represent your whole profession and, again, some of the other people throughout this community who are doing the same thing as we send our kids back, whether it's in person in some other school districts or the virtual distance learning here. We feel good that we have professionals like you all, leading the teaching staffs that are touching our students every day. So thank you for the work that you do. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
What must it be like to be a student in 2020, to have your spring school session end early and your fall school session delayed? Well, we'll talk to some students and they'll tell you how they feel about how school ended last year and how it's starting this year.
I chose manual because it's challenging and fun, and it can help me with college.
I chose manual because I wanted to get a jump start in my career with culinary arts.
I chose manual to acquire skills I'd use in real life.
I chose manual because I want to be an ER doctor, and being an EMT is my first step.
Kickstart your future today at Manual Career and Technical Center. Manual is open for all 11th and 12th grade students in both Kansas and Missouri. Learn more today at enrollkc.org/manual or call 816-418-5200.
And welcome back. Finally, on KCPS Homeroom, we're going to talk to the individuals who were most impacted by the shift in education this past spring, the students. We have Jorge Gonzalez, a junior at East High School, and we also have James McGee, who's going to be a senior at Lincoln Prep. Jorge and James, like I said, you guys are the ones who have been most impacted by this shift in education. Tell us a little bit about what you guys went through back in the spring, which was supposed to be spring break for you all, which turned into an extended spring break.
I'm very active in school. I'm very engaged in whatever we're doing in the district. I'm always at different events and I'm always running around. So it was a very huge adjustment for me, not only socially, but also academically, and being just around the staff that make my day every day. It's just, it was really hard, especially when your days start to run together, and I'm confused if it's Tuesday or if it's Sunday. I don't know if it's Saturday or Thursday, but we've been able to, adjust, and I think that's important. We've been able to adjust, and we were able to end the school year off successfully.
Jorge, what about you?
Yeah, same as my friend right here. It's just been really hard to adjust. Like, life is so different. I miss going to school and learning and joking around with the teachers. Like, finishing the school year was kind of hard. Learning math through a YouTube video, it was rough, but because we couldn't go and ask them, we had to go and email them. So yeah, it's just been long for me. I can't wait to go back to normal. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Well, everybody wants to go back to normal, but right now we actually have a new normal here in the Kansas City public schools, which is we aren't having students come back in September for in-person class. We will do a distance learning. Again, James, you're going to your senior year. As a senior, how are you feeling about this? And what are some of your other friends, not only at school district here, but again across the city? I know you have many friends across town. What are they feeling about the current situation?
Honestly, we've been trying to avoid the topic because it's almost like we want to hold on to the hope of having somewhat of a normal school year, being able to go to homecoming, prom, having graduation, different senior class traditions like senior breakfast, or even simple things like getting our yearbook signed by each other or by our staff that we adore. My friends across the city, since we all have had like different, our districts are taking different approaches. They have different opinions. Some kids feel like it's too early for certain districts, and I think Kansas City kids are essentially we agree with what the district is doing, but we're it still hurts that we won't be able to see each other in person, and we all been trying to talk to our parents about different ways that we can try to have like maybe a social thing together so that we can learn or help tutor each other when we need that. So I think that's a a huge concern is the social side of it, as well as how are we going to get the tutoring that we need if we can't go ask our teachers in person. And some kids, like we have we know our models of learning, and a lot of kids learn by in person learning by a teacher being there and guiding them and showing them exactly what they need. So that's a big concern I've been hearing from a lot of my friends.
So Jorge, what do you think? What are your feelings about going back to school, which is not going back to the school building, but it's a virtual platform here in KCPS? What do you feel about that personally, and what are your friends around town? What do they feel about what their school districts are doing?
Well, I feel good about it. I want to go back to school and learn, but either way, even if we do it virtually, it's still gonna be good for us. Like, a lot of kids just want to go back and like these Zoom calls, have get to see their friends like certain times. They don't want to wake up like towards like halfway through the day. They want to know what day it is. Because coming from me, like when it was rough. Virtually, it was rough. I was waking up late, going late to these Zoom meetings. Like when I had to go to school, like I was ready on time before like school was even open, and I miss it.
So what makes it so rough? Is it just the fact that it's just kind of a shift in your schedule? Like you said, when school was going on, you were there on time, but the fact that you were just at home and you could just roll over a little bit later, what made you a little bit late for some of the classes?
Yeah, that's like getting like thinking, oh, I don't have to go to school. I don't have to drive to school. I can just roll over, turn my computer on, and do my work. It's really hard adjusting to that. Like, I've always been used to just being there on time, ready for school, like sitting at a desk, talking to my friends, asking the teacher questions. But now I have to email them, like turn my computer on, make sure it's charged, turning in assignments on the computer, and it's just been like a whole different like aspect to me. It's just been really different.
It's also been very funny too. There's been some funny moments that's come out of it. Like I have a friend that one time he was sitting there, and then his camera went off, and when it came back on, it had a bear with some like headphones on, just sitting there watching what we're doing, as if he was still there through the bear.
So it's just a different lifestyle, huh? Doing school virtually. And again, so we're doing this again in Kansas City. And you mentioned you agreed with the plan in Kansas City, but some of your friends around town who are actually going back to school. What's the conversation with some of the people you know who are planning, their school districts are planning to go back in person after Labor Day?
So right now, I think typically kids don't want to go to school, and we all know that snow days. We're all waiting for that tweet to be sent out by the district or the phone call. But a lot of students are agreeing because they feel like it's not just us that's impacted, and seeing as we are the people that can transmit it the most, it's not safe for us to be in school at this time. And they feel like these districts are giving them options, and some districts are not. They're saying, well, we're going to do in person or different things like that. And they feel like, well, I want to go to school, of course, because I've been at home for 5 months. I've been looking at the same 4 or 5 people every day of my life for the past 5 months. But also, a lot of kids feel like it's just not safe at this time. If we can just sit there and wait until we get at a better place when it comes to Corona and being able to see the levels drop more like how we're doing and how we're doing this model, which I'm not gonna lie, wasn't psyched about at first because my first thought as a senior is my senior year is about to be cut short basically, but it's for the better good, and that's what we need right now.
Jorge, what are you kind of hearing people from other school districts who are going back in person? What are your friends kind of talking about and saying about this?
They've just been nervous, to be honest. They've just been telling me they're nervous to go back to school because it might affect their family members if they unfortunately get COVID, or they don't know how it's gonna work, how many people are gonna be in class. They're just really nervous or weirded out to see it's so different.
And so we've talked to some of our educators in the school district and across some other school districts. And again, some of the difficulties that you guys spoke of that happened in the spring when it came to distance learning or virtual learning, the educators had a chance to, because it happened very quickly for them too, so they weren't prepared. They've had a summer to prepare for this, and they feel very excited about the possibilities of how well distance learning can go going back into this upcoming school year. What things do you hope to see happen different when it comes to distance learning as you guys are learning at home this school year? What do you hope the school district does a little different?
This is the awkward part of Zoom calls too, right here, just sitting there waiting for someone to respond.
Yeah.
But I think personally, what I want teachers to do is be a little more accessible, because I know they have 100 and however many kids, and they want to be able to help all of us. But some of us might need a little more help than others, and sending constant emails and saying, this is what we need, and not getting a response back for hours, if not days, or even counselors and stuff what us requesting our transcripts. We just want to be able to have a little more access to what we're going to do and how we need help and different things like that.
Jorge, do you have any ideas of what you want to see different? Again, I know we've already made some different preparations coming to this year, so anything that you hope that happens?
I just hope there's gonna be faster response times between the teacher and the student. I know they have a lot of kids. It's just been it was hard because it was really sudden for teachers. They have to switch their whole plans on to virtual, and they don't know what websites to use and stuff like that. But hopefully with the summer, this helped them get prepared and ready with the new classes and the new things that we're gonna do, so we don't just have to do one worksheet and just go to sleep.
Well, you guys were telling me that there are some positives of the distance learning. The food is a lot better.
Ooh, cafeteria food.
I look forward to lunch.
I look forward to breakfast.
Now that you're at home and not when you're in our school buildings.
Yep. I think I had a SDAC meeting in the middle of April, maybe. And so Camilla was asking me, I was walking around because I was walking and eating. Camilla was like, James, are you going to pay attention while we're trying to, I'm like, this is a little different. I'm enjoying myself right now. And I think food is great, especially from my mother.
I second that.
Your mom's the cafeteria worker right now, huh?
I'm first in line every single day. I'm there ready with my plate.
She's the teacher, principal, cafeteria staff, security, janitor, everything. She's been doing a lot.
So she'll probably be happy when her school buildings open back up and you head back to school just as well, huh?
Oh, she's praying.
She can't wait for me to get out her cafeteria.
Well, hopefully that happens soon. Again, as we talked, we are doing a distance. Well, people in KCPS have the option of doing distance learning or virtual academy. What did you guys sign up for, the distance learning or the virtual academy?
I think signed up for virtual academy, if I'm honest. Yeah.
You're doing virtual academy, right?
Yeah, virtual.
And James?
I did distance learning.
Oh, that's great. What went into your decisions? Let's start with you, Jorge, for the virtual academy. What went into your decision of choosing to do the virtual academy?
I don't know. I just think it's like family wise, because I've heard that like COVID-19 it hits stronger, or it's like more likely to hit a person who has diabetes, or so I just wanted to stay away from like most people as possible, because some people in my family have it. So I just been trying to look out for them.
Oh, that's great. And then the virtual academy, just for clarification, same in KCPS as most school districts that we're getting information from. The virtual academy means that students will not come back to the classroom even if the situation improves as far as COVID cases. Now, James, you're doing the distance learning, which means in KCPS, we're starting off without kids being in school, but as the situation gets better, then we will phase back in some students. And so why did you choose that, James?
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. My choice was a little more selfish, but just being able to go in school. I'm a big school person. I have a lot of pride for my school, and being able to walk around the halls and see the teachers one last year. And it was a huge conversation with my parents and I, because I have 4 younger siblings as well who also my parents had to make choices for. But for me personally, I felt like I want to be able to have a choice, so that if I feel like that it is too much for me, then I will go back. I will switch to virtual. But I want to be able to have an option, as well as, I really miss going to school. I cannot push that any more than I already have. It's just, I really miss being at school.
You know what? There is no wrong decision right now. They're tough decisions that students are making and families are making all across the city, all across the metro area. And so you got to make the decision that's best for you and your family. And that's why school districts are putting out there the different options for students and families to choose from. Again, we know it's a tough choice for everybody, but you made the right choice for your family and what's going to happen. And we hope that the experience that the experience will be great, and it will continue to improve throughout the school year. So we thank you two for both joining us today and kind of sharing your experiences and your thoughts about the upcoming school year. You two have a great day, all right?
You too.
And we'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us today. And finally, again, we here at KCPS Homeroom would like to do our part in assisting Kansas City with educating students, all students. This time slide on 38 The Spot is not about the Kansas City Public Schools. It is about schooling kids in the Kansas City area. It's a new venture. We ourselves are still learning how this is going to work, and we hope you all find this beneficial and it helps you through these unprecedented times. Our academic content begins on Monday, August 17th, also known to us as Math Mondays. Tune in right here at 8 a.m. on 38 The Spot. Again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and remember to continue to learn throughout the day.